Nostalgia is a weird thing, because we remember the good and push aside the bad. We remember the moments that made us smile, and forget the moments that made us cry. Some games have a vaulted seal of approval in my head for good reason, while some in that vaulted part of my brain have been disrupted by time and maturity. I have yet to meet many people my age who didn't fall in love with The Simpsons in the early 2000s. In my house, it was seen as a reward if you ate that yucky green crap on your plate. And it was hard not to fall in love with this fictional family mixed with this bizarre town that seemingly dips into every personality trait there is. But I had a problem. I couldn't catch the majority of the humour or even understand the weight of the punchlines yet. And still, there was something about it. There was something about these characters. So where I felt lost, being the last one to laugh in the room, I did what I knew. I played The Simpsons games.
Has nothing to do with memory, but is an emotional problem. You cannot remember an event from your childhood because you fear the memory.
And there were a few of them by a few developers prior to Hit and Run. You had The Simpsons Wrestling by Big 8 Productions, The Simpsons Skateboarding by the Code Monkeys, and The Simpsons Road Rage by Radical Entertainment. So recently, when I blew off the dust of my copies that I still own to this day, sat down and booted them up, I couldn't remember any bad opinions I had of them until I started playing them. For its time is an excuse that is only valid through evolution. For games, it's extremely apparent when those three words are worth using. But looking back at it, The Simpsons games were following a filthy formula. The Simpsons Wrestling is just a rip-off of the WWF games at the time. The Simpsons Skateboarding is one of the worst games to ever exist, and it's just a rip-off of the Tony Hawk games. And The Simpsons Road Rage was a copy and paste of Crazy Taxi. Now, I have no problem with creative theft. In fact, I believe that originality has never existed, and to quote a relatively unknown Twitter artist, Pablo Picasso, good artists borrow, great artists steal. But I have an issue with the label that was attached to the product that was being pushed. I did not buy The Simpsons Wrestling because it was said to be a good game. I bought it because of the label. I did not buy The Simpsons Skateboarding because it was said to be a good game. I bought it because of the label. I did not buy The Simpsons Road Rage because I wanted a second Crazy Taxi. I bought it because of the label. Sure, this is a me problem. At the time, I was a young and impressionable lad who wanted to get in on the trends. But whoever signed off on The Simpsons video games to be made knew that a part of their demographic was people like me. Stealing art works when you innovate from that idea that inspired you, not replicating it. So what is The Simpsons Hit and Run? Is it a racing game? Is it an action adventure? Or is it a repetitive loop of frustration? Well, since we are applying labels, many like to say that Hit and Run is a GTA clone, that Radical Entertainment managed to use the GTA style/formula and tone it down to an audience that was fitting for a younger age range that were consuming The Simpsons TV show. A comparison I see, understand because of the rising popularity behind the open world meta at the time, but don't necessarily feel when I'm playing it, simply because GTA has never struggled with having an identity crisis. Hit and Run from this point onwards becomes extremely stale, frustrating and repetitive when it shouldn't have had a reason to do so. Failure is important for games, believe it or not. Always has and always will be because of the sense of reward. You fail X amount of times, the reward is overcoming that hurdle. The payoff is being on the other side of your failure. Inside of the greatest medium to ever exist, we have the opportunity to restart. You mess up in life, there is no button that will allow you to redo that conversation you inserted a stupid joke into and are now internally cringing profusely. But Hit and Run completely desensitizes the idea of failure because it never builds up towards it correctly.
Well, if that's the case, if those memories are all there inside your skull, is there a way to get them out, to recall them.
On the back end of failure, there is supposed to be a lesson taught. Whilst if you fail a few times in hit and run, may I add having to restart the entire mission from the beginning, my level of frustration just kept slowly building up to the point of where I am learning nothing, yet I do not care about the possibilities to be better at the game to challenge my skill gate. Instead, hit and run builds this terrible fail state of where we know the missions aren't easy, so let's implement submission. Oh, you failed a few times? Here's a way out. And lacking hesitation, I chose the easy way out because I could not be bothered to be a part of this adventure, and the subsequent disciplines that would normally occur when giving up literally do not exist. You can do nothing purposely and still progress through the main story.
Sucks. I never thought I'd say this, but I'm actually excited to be going to a museum.
At face value, a huge selling point to hit and run is that it's an open world adventure with the Simpsons characters, yet the possibilities to explore on foot within the main missions are extremely scarce in comparison to what can be done in a car. So I will be removing hit and run's current identity of being an action adventure, and from this point forward I will be labelling hit and run as a racing thingy. I say this because the use of exploring within the world of Springfield outside of its car is just to collect currency in order to progress for, well, another mission in a car, woo, or an anti-doping advertisement. But other than that, there is literally no need. Actually, tell a lie. Remember those beautiful loading screens where no one actually paid attention to them because we thought the processor pretending like we didn't care about them made them load faster? Well, if you paid attention to hit and runs, you would have noticed that the shortcuts within Springfield's design is pushed as a hint. Shortcuts are useful in racing games, a first place safety blanket if you're lucky and smart. But hit and run is beyond dependent on shortcuts. In fact, with the bastarding clock in the top left, they become the entire path design in a lot of missions, to the point of where shortcuts are no longer shortcuts, they are just the path. Now this is annoying for a few reasons, mainly because racing games have this incredible quality that is a pre-installed asset called tension. The idea of being behind, being in front, keeping consistency just so you don't fall back, knowing that you need finesse in order to make sure you finish first.
Well, you know, it's a cliche that memory plays tricks on you. Well, really, when it comes down to it, how do you remember something?
Adverse, stale, scant, commonly known as ASS, is the best way to describe hit and run's mission design. In fairness, there are a few objectives. You have the races, the trailing, the escape and pursuit, the fetch quest, the collision/collection with a constant countdown. Now that does sound like a lot of objectives, but instead of pacing them efficiently throughout the game, hit and run will rather use one of them, call it a mission, or just grab a handful of them, throw them needlessly together, and just calls it a day. And the reasons why I refuse to call hit and run an action adventure and prefer just to label it as a racing thingy is because you would think being set in an open world, the best way to separate the tediousness would be to create more on-foot exploration for the sake of missions, and then sprinkle the driving missions or vice versa, allowing us to explore the town of Springfield that has more views than just kicking things for coins and looking for shortcuts. But that is just not the case, which is such a shame because there really could have been some great moments. I swear to you, the most fun I had in hit and run was the Mr. Burns puzzle. Admittedly, on PC, the climbs up to Mr. Burns' office were annoying as...
But it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward.
One giant leap for mankind.
That's how winning is done.
But if The Simpsons Hit and Run had more moments like that, instead of just tiny pieces to interact with within the world, I genuinely do not believe I would have this attitude towards Hit and Run. But seeing as we are talking about a racing thingy, let's mention car physics. The collision physics sucked harder than a pork.
300 horses of convenient power.
For racing thingies, obstacles are normal, and The Simpsons Hit and Run builds around the design of momentary pause of motion through NPC physics that sometimes just don't want to participate and refuse to move after being hit, completely stumping my ability in order to get back on track, making the whole replaying the entire mission over again just because of a silly mistake even worse, making that skip button even more appealing, which makes the hit and run system so stupid, pointless, and is like accidentally drinking a beer that has been used as an ashtray for the last 20 minutes. And I say this because it is the perfect highlight into the source of my issue with hit and run's physics. To briefly bring it back to the GTA comparison, the police are used like a morality meter, right? You commit a crime, there's a consequence for your action. The reason to why they work is because it was an action you decided to make. When they're on your ass, you didn't have to kill an NPC, you decided to. Whilst the hit and run meter builds up because of vandalism. Issue is, a lot of hit and run's obstructions are placed directly in front of you in order to make you slip up to pay a price of failure if you were caught. And with the stuck in the mud physics, it's always felt like I was being penalised, even though it wasn't my intention. And the reason why it was the last thing I mentioned is because all of this, the last 11 minutes you've spent of your life listening to my voice, the hit and run system was the finale of many small things that built up this far larger, bitter taste in my mouth concerning The Simpsons Hit and Run. Let me ask you a question. If The Simpsons Hit and Run was a game that wasn't based in Springfield and you wasn't controlling the characters you heard through your TV screen, would it have been a success? Would it still be a game you swore is great? And would it have been a game you would have bought? We will never know this answer definitively. As if my auntie had balls, she would be my uncle. But although I have moaned throughout the video with the game design gobble, I would be completely lying to you if I were to say that The Simpsons Hit and Run was not a huge step forward from radical entertainment's stamp within The Simpsons license. Step 1, you imitate. Step 2, you emulate. But Step 3, you innovate. And unfortunately, radical entertainment never got that chance. My personal experience won't be a parallel reflection to yours. If you hold The Simpsons Hit and Run dearly, squeeze it tighter. Maybe you see nostalgia as this beautiful escape to a better time. But this YouTube channel,
I think it'll be people will be regarded more as statistics than as actual people.
Is rapidly but surely suffocating my nostalgic past.